Y'all, I just got my food stamps. No shade. I just got my food stamps. Like,
I had a feeling they were going to do this. So the Trump administration, or specifically the Department of Agriculture, is going to require everybody who gets food stamps to reapply, and probably reapply under the new guidelines. They're doing this in an attempt to address all of the fraud, waste, and abuse that have been going on within the SNAP program, which charges the country about $100 billion a year for SNAP alone. Plan to have everybody reapply for their benefits to make sure that everyone is taking a taxpayer-funded benefit through food stamps, that they literally are vulnerable and they can't survive without it. I also mentioned in a previous press conference that he did that they know that there are people that would up and quit their jobs and then file for benefits because they felt like it was easier to do it that way, and that you're not supposed to do it. Like, that's not what the intended use of SNAP is for.
Well, folks, barring some type of woke district judge, which I'd still keep an eye on, it is happening. I don't think that the welfare grifters and fraudsters, aka a bunch of Democrat voters in this country, are going to be all too happy, but I did warn them. I did warn the Democrats. One thing that this government shutdown highlighted to conservatives was just how rampant welfare fraud actually is in America. Now, much of the first DOGE effort focused on Social Security and Medicare fraud, but this wasn't something we heavily talked about before. Hey, a bunch of people are using food stamps to be obese. They're using food stamps to buy a bunch of junk food. They're not even necessarily poor. They're just grifting off of the taxpayer. And after all, who is now in charge of this presidential administration? The conservatives. So in other words, you guys messed up, because this weekend the Trump administration has announced that they will basically be trying to get all 42 million SNAP EBT recipients in this country to reapply for the program under new, stricter guidelines. Now, no one's necessarily getting kicked off. We're just making sure, after all the rampant problems we've seen, hey, does everyone who's receiving SNAP actually need to have it? Are they taking advantage of the system? And as you could expect, you're seeing a massive meltdown from Democrats and the very EBT America, who is, of course, probably going to say that it's racist, you're causing undue complications. But it's like, look, if you were able to apply for the program the first time, why can't you reapply? If you sincerely need it, then why would you be against an audit or a review of that situation? Well, we obviously know the answer, and we know that this is a major part, actually, of the Democrats' political machine, is give a bunch of free stuff to primarily poor people, use it as an incentive to keep them poor, because that's exactly what these types of programs do. They incentivize poverty, but people get so used to the benefits that any threat of taking it away, oh, go vote for us, keep voting for us time and time again. And that is essentially the reason why, on one hand, America's bankrupting itself, but on the other hand, why we can't even vote our way out of it is because of this core problem. But that said, we'll tell you all about this new reform over at USDA with SNAP in today's video. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's not only the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, let us begin by hearing those brand new details. Again, after all that we saw during the government shutdown, the Trump administration is now trying to get all 42 million, which is an absurdly high number of SNAP recipients in this country, to reapply for the program. Take a listen for yourself.
Is going to have to reapply. Now, this happened, of course, when the government shut down, and there was, the SNAP benefits were not getting out to the people.
For 42 million Americans.
For 42 million. Well, we thought Americans.
Inside the country.
People is probably the better. Yep. People. And so Brooke Rollins, we had her on, and we had a great conversation with her where she said, hey, listen, this whole SNAP benefits conversation around the shutdown has sort of pulled the curtain back, and people are seeing how many people are on SNAP that aren't actually citizens, and they're going to have to reapply. What do you make of this? I think it's very popular, especially if you go online and look at what people think. I think it's a popular initiative to say these benefits are for Americans. Is she going to be able to accomplish this? Is she going to have some legal challenges to it? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm sure. Everything that comes from the Trump administration, I just track it and see how long it takes for it to land in the Supreme Court. So there are going to be legal challenges. But the thing is, most of these programs with SNAP are administered by the states. And a lot of the states do have verification programs where people have to update every 3 to 6 months, or, really establish that they got some kind of need. But maybe she's proposing something at the federal level that would then have a federal component for, applying and proving that you actually need this. Because I think all of us are compassionate Americans. Like, we want our fellow Americans to get help when they need it. And we've all known people, if not our own families, that have walked through these periods of needing this kind of help. But Secretary Rollins also said that she found there were 186,000 checks or SNAP benefits going out to people who were dead. So if that's accurate, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And there are other problems with the program, too. So I think a lot of Americans would say, gosh, I didn't realize before we were having this conversation there were 42 million people on these benefits. Maybe it's, not such a bad idea.
The problem is you have an extremely corrupt program. But up until this administration, and with President Trump's direct focus on this and making sure every taxpayer dollar is spent appropriately, we've never really had the opportunity to dig in. So we're going to be talking a lot more about SNAP reform. We've got a lot of people listening now, which is very, very helpful. And to take that program back to its original intent of helping those who are truly needy in our communities, but not to have a massive welfare benefit where so many people are taking advantage of it that shouldn't be.
Yeah, so as you would expect, the Democrats are completely losing their minds over this. They are prepared to bring various legal challenges. You can fully expect that. But if you're a sincere person, you might be asking to yourself, I genuinely don't see the problem. After all, we have seen a bunch of proof of rampant fraud of this system. Anyone who, by the way, just lives in the United States of America definitely knows that it's happening. They probably see it on a daily basis when you work, just out and about. You notice how the liquor stores, for instance, always have the "we accept EBT" cards. Like, what exactly is going on there? But of course, much like you saw during the Doge efforts when we came after USAID and other things, you notice the vitriolic reaction that you get both from Democrat politicians and their voters the moment the government says, hey, let's crack down on fraud. Hey, waste and abuse, maybe we don't like that. Like, no! And it's like, why are you so angry? I think we know the answer there. We'll talk more about that in a second. But first, take a listen here to the very reactions we're getting from many Democrat voters and supporters out there who certainly look like the prime ambassadors of the SNAP program. I mean, aren't they just such great proof that it's clearly working so well? But anyways, check it out.
Good afternoon. So this SNAP benefit saga, the Grinch that stole SNAP benefits, because clearly I feel like the money is gone. I think he was like, skirt, swiper, no swiping, Dora and Diego. He just swiped the fuck out of it and it's gone. Because now your raggedy ass president and his raggedy ass Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, is now saying that SNAP benefit recipients are going to now 42 million people are going to have to reapply for SNAP benefits because there's so much fraud. Well, I don't know what the fuck Doge was doing when they were saying that they got rid of all this waste, fraud, and abuse, because thought we figured that out, DJ Musty on the beat. But yet here you are, even though SNAP benefit recipients have to recertify every 6 months to ensure that they are still qualified to receive the benefits. I've never seen an administration that just works so hard to just be dickholes to the American people. That's y'all president.
This reminds me so much of the voter ID debate. The issues are almost identical, where it's like, if you're not cheating, what do you have to worry about with voter ID? And the Democrats either say that's racist or minorities and poor people are not able to get IDs. Clearly, they all do have IDs. How do you think they're buying alcohol and flying on Spirit Airlines? But no, like, seriously, right? But it's the same thing here. They have to reapply every 6 months. That's so cruel. Well, you want the benefits, don't you? If it's so hard to apply for SNAP, then how did you get on SNAP to begin with? What's the problem with reapplying? And you know why it's actually important that we ought to check in every 6 months? Is because SNAP, Section 8, all of the welfare programs are not meant to be permanent programs. What is it even called? It's in the name. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's not called NAP. It's not called PNAP, right? Permanent assistance, supplemental assistance, because the entire intent behind these welfare programs, which by the way have completely failed in the United States, but the point of it is supposed to be, hey, you're poor, you want a leg up in society. So we're going to cover the cost of your food. We're going to cover the cost of your housing, Medicaid. We might even cover the cost of your health insurance. So that way you can take the money you have and try to save it, level up in life, buy your own place, get a better job, et cetera, et cetera. And that's, by the way, the very reason why, for instance, if you start making over $40,000, most people lose eligibility for welfare programs. But of course, the incentive structure is completely backwards. And what has happened in this country? Why? Is because The truth of the matter, whether or not people find it offensive, it's just like I'm not even trying to insult them. It's just a socioeconomic fact. Is generally speaking in America and all around the world, right? Poor people don't really make the best decisions in life. Okay, they don't make good financial decisions. As you can see, oftentimes they're not making good dietary decisions. And you could argue it's an education issue. Oh, that's how they were raised. They don't know any better. Okay, but the point is what? When you give a bunch of poor people basically a free check, a free place to live, a free debit card to buy whatever food they want, right? They're not going to be smart generally. Some will, but we're talking about the people who, again, like, why are you reapplying every 6 months? Why is it bad to check, hey, did you find a job? Do you still need SNAP? Whatever. Because what we've created in this country, I would argue purposefully, is permanent dependency, right? Because think about it too. Most poor people, but I would argue people in general, right? If they were just born into the situation and you were told by the society, it's basically socialism, right? You have free housing, that's all paid for through Section 8. Sometimes it's not even that bad of an apartment, right? There's some nicer Section 8 ones out there. Maybe you got one of those, okay? You have free food, that's all paid for. All your health insurance is paid for, and through various other welfare programs, you get free education, all these other things. What incentive would you have to get out of that? It's like, I'm already taken care of. I'm basically all set, right? And sure, some people would genuinely sit there and say, well, I want to go on my own. I want to feel like I did something for myself, right? I want to, it might be risky. If I start making over $40,000, I'll lose those benefits. I'll have to start paying for myself, but the ceiling is much higher. Sure, the 1% out there, the elite-minded people of society would think that way. Let me just tell you, though, that most people wouldn't, right? It's actually a natural instinct. Like, once you get comfortable, you don't really want to change your situation. There's a reason why even in the wild, right? You put animals in a zoo. Once you domesticate them, you cannot release them back into the wild. They have no idea how to survive. They genuinely just forgot, right? That's exactly what we've done with SNAP. And I've brought it up before. How could it possibly be the case that groceries over time, right? Food in America has actually gotten cheaper relative to inflation and median salaries, right? That's the one cost of living metric since the 50s and 60s that's actually gone down over time, relative amount that each American spends on food. I think on average in the 1950s and 60s, the normal American family was spending about 13% of their income on food. Now that's about 4 to 5%, even with the COVID inflation. So this is all to say, if groceries have gotten cheaper and our GDP and those other things have gone up, how exactly could it be the case that more people now are on SNAP? Which is why I would actually make the case that I think the vast majority of the program is fraud. Because first and foremost, we do have the fraud that gets admitted to. For example, throughout the month of November, I would guess because the government shutdown was causing the chaos, and then you have the courts say Trump has to pay all the SNAP benefits, and then the Supreme Court stepped in and said you can only do it partially, you don't have to pay it all, etc. I mean, we saw a bunch of cases like this right here where, this woman recorded a phone call with a New Jersey EBT automated line and revealed she currently has $23,000 in her SNAP benefit account, That's enough for a down payment on like a small condo or something, right? Just, sitting there in the welfare, free from the taxpayers, right?
Thank you for calling New Jersey EBT customer service. For English, press 1. Para español, for EBT, press 1. Mm-hmm. Enter the last 4 digits of your phone. Mm-hmm. Enter your PIN. Your SNAP balance is $23,235.
So we certainly know this type of stuff is happening. We know there's dead people receiving it. There's probably a bunch of well-off, relatively people who just figure out how to game the system, so they make the government think they're in poverty when they're really not. But when I say that the vast majority of EBT is fraud and abuse, that's not even what I mean, right? Because I think those numbers are relatively small compared to the whole 40 million. What I actually mean by that is that I think in the vast majority of cases, exceptions being genuinely disabled, elderly, and maybe a few poor people who are actually using it for a good cause and they don't plan to stay on it for the rest of their life. But no, I'd argue, again, in the vast majority of cases, you are dealing with people who have been conditioned, again, to live off the government permanently and are basically making no attempt to actually ever level up their life. And that's even the reactions that you see all over social media, is people admitting essentially exactly that. And of course that they're, using food stamps to buy some pretty crazy things. Take a listen.
Guys, my SNAP benefits finally came in today in full. So we're going to go to the grocery store. We're going to get everything organic. We're going to get all the chips, all the Rice Krispies, all the fruit bars, luxury meats, the expensive soda Olipop. We're going to get one of each flavor, okay? And that's it. I'm not getting anything for my kids. They can eat the luxury meats if they want to. I'm not getting anything for them. I have suffered this month, and I'm going to get what I want. Mom snacks only.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You look like you're suffering. I'm sure you would completely starve if the government stopped giving you SNAP benefits to buy, according to you, Olipop, luxury meat, and a bunch of chips and snacks, right? Here's another reason I say the program is completely fraudulent. They say, oh, it's about starving people, right? Americans are going to starve. Well, then why is that the case that the vast majority of SNAP recipients are obese? According to data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey from 2007-2010, approximately 65% of SNAP participants aged 2 and older were overweight or obese. 65%, the majority, overweight or obese. By the way, this is data from the early 2000s. Where do you think it is now? Probably much higher, I would guess. Because I don't think I've seen a single one who's not, around these days, right? That includes 25% who were overweight, and 39.7%, so even most of that, are people who are obese. For context, the comparable figure was 61% for income-eligible non-participants and 59% for higher-income non-participants during the same period. So literally, the rate of obesity, America overall, yeah, pretty obese, but the rate of obesity among SNAP participants is higher than the rest of society. What's going on there? Well, as you so often see, right, it's because of the fact that, as RFK Jr. tried to crack down on earlier this year, when they go and buy their groceries, okay, it looks like this right here, So, look at average EBT haul. We see these videos all the time, okay? We've reacted to probably like 20 of them, all right? So let's see. Let's please point out for me when you guys find actual food, okay? So we got Starbucks Frappuccino. She would starve without the Starbucks Frappuccino, guys. And that's full of sugar, by the way. So we got that, some sports drinks, also full of sugar, a Sprite, snacks, chips. Some type of sugary thing, the Slim Jim. All right. But at least she got a banana, guys. Still not really food, by the way. It's still like snacking food, right? Where's the meals? What is she eating for the meals? Okay, so we got Cocoa Pebbles, sugary cereal, Lucky Charms, sugary cereal, by the way, with very little nutritional value. So hungry all the time, right? Welch's, water bottle, Danimals, more chips. Where's the food here? I don't know. Mushrooms, I guess. Is that what that's? So, something there looks like food. But yeah, we see this all the time, right? And when I brought this up, by the way, about how obese the SNAP recipients on average are, a bunch of leftists who think they're smart tried to come to me and say, well, that's because they're poor, right? And because junk food in America is cheaper than regular food, that's all they can afford to buy. That's why the poor people are more obese in America. It's like, fair point. I think you think you're smart, but you're actually not. You know why? Because the entire point of SNAP, guys, is so that way the people have the money to buy real food, okay? Look how big this grocery cart. By the way, when I've never gone grocery shopping, it's been this much freaking crap, okay? But you see it all the time. They get these big hauls of giant shopping carts, and nothing in here is actual food. So you mean to tell me the money they spend on all this crap, right? Like a whole pantry's worth in one single SNAP haul. So you gotta at least guess there's at least $1,000 on that EBT card. You mean to tell me they couldn't afford to buy real or healthy food with this? Of course they could. The whole point is what? They are not, because I'm going to repeat this right now. Generally speaking, poor people do not make good decisions in America. They don't know what they're doing. And so, much like their financial decisions, again, I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm just saying it's kind of like a literacy issue, you could call it, right? So when you give a bunch of poor people a free debit card to do and go buy whatever they want, they might be smart and think, oh, let me not spend this beyond my means, and let me actually use this, for example, so I can save the rest of the money, and let me buy healthy stuff on it, so that way, I'm not obese, etc. But that's not the decision most people are going to make in that position if you hand it to them. That's, again, the incentive structure, the problem with all of this. Because, hey, after all, I have this EBT card. I have the money to actually pay for healthy, nutritious food. But if the whole idea, the whole concept of this program is a temporary hand up to poor people, so that way they can, over time, save the rest of their money and become healthy and rich, that intent has failed. That's why I say the overwhelming amount of the program is fraud. Because no, instead, people are using it to permanently stay fat and poor. Not the point. And if the program is genuinely following its intent, like Democrats claim, then they shouldn't have any problem with checking and re-verifying eligibility, right? Reapplying every 6 months so we can make sure, hey, do you still need this? It's supplemental. It's not supposed to be permanent. But again, you're seeing the opposite of that. Why? Because I will repeat, the reason the Democrats set up the welfare state in this way, and I'm talking specifically about FDR and LBJ, they're the two main ones, but others added on to it, right? The whole point of it was because they knew they'd have this kind of political hostage situation. Because let me say as well right now, there's going to be a massive political backlash to this. Even though it's temporary, even though that most people will probably still be able to get back on it and all this stuff, and it's just basically a simple verification check. It's not even going as far as I'm arguing it should go, right? In terms of, if you've stayed on this program for 10 years and you're not finding a job, get the heck off it, right? They're not even going to be doing that. They're just going to probably be making sure you're not a dead person or something. But again, when you make people so dependent and then you have a big bad guy threatening to take away that dependency, even if it's genuinely what's best for you, you're not going to be favorable to that person, right? Imagine like the homeless drug addict on the street. He's got two guys, right? He's got like the angel and the devil on his shoulder. So one guy is his old friend from childhood saying, hey, like, let me take you to rehab. It'll be free. I'll take care of it. Like, you need to fix yourself. You need to improve your life, right? And then on the other side is this drug dealer who's like, hey, man, I got more of those drugs. If someone's already physically addicted to drugs, which one are they basically going to choose most of the time, right? They're not going to seek the help. They want more of the drugs because they're addicted. It's the same phenomenon basically with the government cheese, right? It becomes an addiction over time, okay? And yes, much like withdrawing from drugs, withdrawing from the fact that your entire life is paid for, whether you deserve it or not, is a difficult thing. That's why exactly Democrats, for instance, tried to weaponize EBT and SNAP, by the way, effectively in this past year's elections. I'm sure they're going to do it again. So do I have that concern? I guess yes, but it's also the right thing to do. So let's just, figure out how this all goes. I mean, at a certain point, you can't just do nothing because you're scared of political backlash. This is a serious problem. I once saw a video, it's somewhere on my Twitter from like a year ago, but it was of this like single mom basically telling her son was saying, hey, I want to go find a job so I can make money. And the mom was like, no, don't do that. Because if you do that, we're going to be over $40,000 and we're going to get kicked out of the Section 8 program.
No job. If you go get a job, they're going to take my Section 8. Then you won't be able to get no Section 8. You're not going to get no job. They're going to count your income against my Section 8 and my link card. You're not working. No. So I don't care what you got to say. I don't care how you feel. You're not working. You're not going to get a job. You're not going to school. You're not doing none of that shit. Get on Section 8. Find you a nice apartment. Go get you a link card. You will be fine. You don't have to sit up and work. You don't have to work no job. The government is here to help us.
Right. And that was like a prime example to me. Look at how these programs are incentivizing poverty. Here you have a kid who's actually trying to like better his own life. And the mom is telling him, no, let's stay on Section 8. And then she was like, when you're older, you're just going to go get your own Section 8. Don't find your own job. This is the nightmare we've created, but that's exactly what the Democrats want, right? Because they know if all these people, if it had to happen undemocratically in some way, I don't know. But if all these people got off their dependency and started building their own lives, generations from now, that would be a huge political danger to the Democrat Party. But they know because we have elections essentially every 2 years that, the immediate backlash. See, Republicans try to take away your SNAP benefits. We'll just put them back in. Don't worry about it. It's so infuriating to me. I don't know what you got to do about this. I've heard the idea that maybe we should only allow tax positive people to vote in this country. I would be totally in support of that. I think that solve a lot of problems actually for us, but I don't know. That said though, guys, let me know your thoughts on this situation in the comment section down below. Do you support the Trump reform? Do you think it should go further? Let me know. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.